We're now doing project 3B, newsletter with mailing labels. And objective 4 is formatting a multi-column newsletter. And to do that, we need to open up the Memphis newsletter file. So go to your File tab and choose Open. And we want the Memphis newsletter. Go ahead and open that. And this is what we get. You should have the Show Hide button pushed in, and you should be in the Print Layout view. And then we're going to do a Save As. And go to the beginning of that line there, and we're going to change it to our last name on the front, and then we're going to save it. And we want to select the first paragraph of text, Memphis Primary Materials, and we want to change the font to Arial Black and the font size to 24. So let's change the font size to 24, and then what we want for the font name here is Arial Black, which looks like bold Arial. Select the first two paragraphs. So these two lines right here. And then what we want to do is change the font. So the font color is right here. And we want the fifth column, the last color, which should be labeled blue accent 1 darker 50%. With the text still selected, we want the borders arrow. Here's the borders box right here. Click on the down arrow and choose borders and shading down here, so we've got the ability to customize our border. For color, we want, same one, blue accent 1 darker 50%. For the width, we want 3 points, which it already is. And in the preview box, we want to do a bottom border only. So you have to turn that on by clicking on the bottom in the preview box, and then click on OK. And that's what your document looks like. It should look like figure 3.22. Below the nameplate, beginning with the paragraph Memphis Primary Materials and Introduction, that would be this paragraph right here. Select all the text to the end of the document, and I'm just going to click here and do Shift and page down a couple of times to get to the end of the document. Now I've got the whole thing selected. And we want columns. Columns affect the page layout. They're on the Page Layout tab, and they're in the Page Setup group here, and there's a button called Columns. We want 2, so click on 2. And that's what our document should look like now. Scroll the top of page 1, and which we already are, and then save your document. Now we're moving on to activity 3.09, formatting multiple columns. With the 2 columns of text still selected, we want to go to the Page Layout tab, which we're still on. We're going to go to the Paragraph group, and we want spacing after to be 6 points. Right now it's 10. If you hit the down arrow, it drops it down to 6. On the Home tab, in the Paragraph group, we want to justify. Notice the keyboard shortcut for that is also Control-J. Click anywhere in the document to deselect the text, compare it with figure 3.23, and it looks identical. Notice there's something called a section break in here too. We now have 2 sections in our document. This part up here is 1 column, the part below is 2 columns. Anytime you have a different number of columns in different parts of your document, it's going to be divided up into 2 sections because the column number command applies to an entire section. Okay, so we want to save this and go on to 3.10, inserting a column break. We want to scroll down to the paragraph that begins down here near the bottom. There's a paragraph that begins with Memphis Primary Materials. Select that paragraph and the 3 following that end with a telephone number, so that will be these 4 lines right here. We want spacing after these to be 0. Select the 3 paragraphs that begin with CEO and end with CFO. And we want their spacing after to be 0 as well. Near the bottom of the first column, click to position the insertion point at the beginning of the line that begins Make Recycling. That'll be right there. And we're going to go to the Page Layout tab, which we're still on. In the Page Setup group, what we're going to do is we're going to put a break in here. We want to push that up to the top of the next column, so you have to insert a break. And the kind of break we want is a column break. And you see that shows up down here at the bottom. And that explains why the text that follows it is at the top of a new column. And compare our document with figure 3.25, and it looks pretty good. And save it. And now we're in activity 3.11. And we're going to insert some clip art there. Do Control Home to go to the top of the document. On the Insert tab, you can insert a picture. And the type of picture is going to be clip art. And when you click on clip art, you get this search box over here, and replace what is there with environmental awareness, and click on Go. And what we're looking for is this picture right here. And we click on it. It appears where the cursor was. We're going to close the clip art window over here. And we're going to resize this and set the height equal to 1. So bounce on the down arrow here a few times. In the wrap text, we want square, so the text will wrap around it. We want to drag it to the right. And if you want to make sure it stays on the same level, just hold Shift down while you drag it over to the right. And we'll line up the right edge about near the end of the right margin over here. And it's covering up January, so we're going to use the arrow keys here to, I'm bouncing on the arrow keys here to push that up a little ways until January shows up. And when it does, then our document matches figure 3.27, and now we can save it. Now we're in activity 3.12, and we're supposed to position our cursor at the beginning of the paragraph that says you can make, so that would be right here. Then we need to open our internet browser and go to the address given there, www.epa.gov/osw/conserve/rrr. So I'm going to pause and do that. So I found the appropriate web page, and my screen is much wider than his is. My monitor is much wider, so I've resized it so it only takes up a part of the screen here. And what we're going to do is we want a screenshot, and that is on the Insert tab here. This is a relatively new feature. And if we click on the down arrow, it'll tell us which windows are available. And I want the web page. And it'll take a screenshot of that, and it'll insert it where I am in my document. And that brings us to the end of activity 3.12, and that's where we'll end this video.